Hey, hi, I'm Meka.
And I'm Nataraja.
And we are Ascended Heart Navigators. We're welcoming you tonight to talk about a very sticky topic. It is emotions.
Emotions. And we are all dealing with some very heightened emotions.
Definitely.
Let's take a deep breath with that one.
Woo! Woo!
Oh, dear.
Breathe it in. Breath work is an important tool in handling your emotions. So today we're going to talk about triggers, and we're going to talk about coping mechanisms. And we're just going to talk about our relationship with our emotions and how we can navigate through our lives and our feelings into making our life experience something not only manageable, but really profound. And it doesn't just have to be happy all the time. But, you know, when you get a relationship with your emotions, you can choose how you want to feel. And even when you are angry, you can have perspective and be okay with that, which is a cool thing. Being okay, totally a cool thing. So, Nataraja, how would you talk about introducing what we're all experiencing with triggers?
Right. Yes. Now is the time to start looking at our triggers in a very different way and looking at our landscape of emotional triggers very differently.
Right.
And we're in a time where a lot of people are feeling very intense politically about their beliefs, about their safety, about
Concerned
their
about
a lot of concerns and health and wellness. And so we're finding
all of it.
And so we're finding ourselves in a landscape where we are we're triggered very easily.
Right.
And it's because our emotions are in an elevated state. And we're going to talk a little bit about like fight or flight, but I want to talk about really quick about we can change the way that we view triggers, and especially we're like conflictual belief systems. And if we choose to say, okay, I'm not only going to change or look at my emotions, but I'm also going to welcome going into a landscape of triggers and seeing it not from, and this is a Byron Katie, not from I'm right and I need to prove everyone wrong, but like a landscape of like I'm gonna watch and see what's happening with my emotions, and I'm gonna use this as a teaching tool for myself, because we can go into these different situations, especially on social media. We'll go into social media and we'll basically be expecting a fight. But if we're going into it, actually looking at it, let me go into this place where I can see what is coming up for me, and using what we usually saw as like conflicts and play in spaces to avoid, or even spaces to engage in, because engaging also sometimes feels really good. and we'll also talk about like how that does emotionally, and the chemicals that happen when you go into fight. You get these adrenaline pump. You're pumped,
right?
And it actually becomes an addictive.
I think that humans tend to have not only habitual behaviors, but addictive behavior patterns.
Towards emotions, absolutely.
Towards emotions.
Well, in general, but we're talking about emotions, and there are addictive behaviors towards emotion.
We're addicted to being a certain emotion on a regular basis.
Right.
Whether we're addicted to being happy, angry, depressed, sad, whatever emotion we're addicted to tends to be how we play out these roles and scenarios. And then we attract different scenarios to reinforce the same emotional experience over and over again until we really look at it and face it, travel through the experience of it, and find out where the source is of that belief system that creates that emotional pattern in our lives that we are addicted to.
Yeah.
So
and I love that you're saying that, because it is an addiction,
right.
And it's more about it's more about chemistry in the body than
Right.
and we don't realize that it's actual chemical thing that happens, that we are wanting to have this, we want to repeat these cycles of emotions because it's a familiar chemical response in our body, and being aware of that is massive,
huge, completely freeing. And that's what we're kind of doing by becoming aware of our emotions, is that we're freeing ourselves from being trapped in them and giving ourselves at least a choice or perspective in how to deal with them.
right?
So the first thing we would say as theta healers, which is one modality of healing that we have both studied, is to travel through the different experiences where we feel similar patterns of emotion.
Right.
Like family, situations coming up and we're feeling judgment is what Natasha was talking about earlier. And when you look at judgment, you can go, oh, I'm feeling judged here. Where else in my life have I felt judged?
Right.
Other situations.
Right.
Work,
yeah.
relationships.
And then and that's the technique of watching the emotions. And that's one of the reasons why I really, really love Kyle Cease. Kyle Cease, he's amazing.
He's a comedic healer. So he uses comedy and healing, motivational speaking, in the same arena. So you can really, he's got a cool approach to perspective. I think it's called Evolving Out Loud.
Evolving Out Loud.
Yeah.
Go to our website, AscendedHeartNavigators.com, and you'll see a clip of his one of his conferences, Evolving Out Loud, and you'll get clued into some of his work.
So
but one of the premises of what he works is actually tracking your emotions. And when we are in different situations, we see the emotion coming up, and we're with the emotions instead of what happens is typically when we feel an emotion, we will either try to get away from the emotion, we'll distract. We will definitely distract ourselves. We will avoid, and there's different things that we will do to avoid, and it could be anything by we're feeling sadness. Let me get on Facebook and
drink. Let me drink alcohol,
or eat, or whatever it is. There's a distraction.
To distract. So that's a really cool point. What a great tool, because Kyle Cease is saying just to look at your emotions and actually sit with them and get to know them.
Right.
Which is strange because most of our lives are saying run away from them.
Right.
Don't look at them. Avoid them. So we're not doing the allowing of us to have this human experience that is filled with the complexities and diversities of emotions related
and even
to
being in these emotional states. So, like, if you are feeling sad and you're like feeling sad, and then you're like, I want to open up the refrigerator, and then you're like noticing, oh, I felt sad. I wanted to do this. Oh, I'm feeling sad.
Noticing your patterns.
I was like, oh, I'm feeling sad. I want to get on Facebook. And so when we're tracking our emotions, not only are we starting to track like what our avoidance is and what our cravings are when we are feeling certain things.
Because it's one or the other.
Right.
Avoidance or craving.
Yeah. And this is something that I learned way back in, I had taken a Vipassana meditation retreat. The meditation retreat is a 10-day, if anyone's interested, it's an amazing experience. They might not be happening now.
There is a retreat happening with our friends Anita and Kat in Mexico at the Light Center.
Oh, okay.
That is a meditation retreat. And so there are retreat options available for social distancing consideration. So reach out if you do want to do a meditation retreat of any kind, because we can hook you up with some people that we know and love.
Yay.
But
that would be.
Yeah.
So I did. And so the practice of Vipassana was basically being in meditation. So it's you're in a silent retreat, and
very cool.
You are meditating all day long. And it's a practice of breathing. And when you're watching your breath, you're watching your emotions. And noticing, and the whole practice of Vipassana is understanding, and the awareness of is when we have emotions, there is avoidance and then there's craving or desire. And what happens is when something traumatic or even something happens, happy or joyful in our life, it creates this physical imprint. It's almost like a time stamp. And then something happens in our body that remembers that moment and remembers that emotion. And it will either create, we'll do anything to avoid feeling that because it was so painful, or we'll end up wanting to crave or desire or track or find anything that's going to give us that emotional response again, because it has a chemical imprint in our body.
Is that why? So that's telling me that that's why we associate, if we have a sense of smell, we can have a memory.
Right.
Or, because there's an imprint of a happy or traumatic experience, a range, and then there's a habit of how to respond to that, whether it's avoidance or desire, craving for something. So that's where addictions do get imprinted into our chemical body, which is why it's really important to identify these so that you can choose your habits and or addictions. It's better to choose a pattern that would be enhancing to your well-being rather than one that was destructive. But becoming aware of that, I think, is really the key to all of this.
Right. Yeah, cool. and following them, and when we're in any kind of a moment of conflict, we're feeling any kind of emotion, is feeling that emotion, and what happens is that there's actually an emotion behind an emotion. Wow. And for example, we're at work and something goes wrong, and you're feeling angry. And when you're with that feeling of anger, you're noticing the anger, and then all of a sudden another thought comes through or another emotion comes through, and it goes back to maybe a feeling of like the loss of control. You can't control your environment. Right. And then you're like watching, oh, okay, this is about control. And then you'll be with that emotion, and then maybe it will bring up another memory or a thought or a feeling of another moment that you didn't feel control, and then you felt this emotion.
Got it.
And just being with that and almost kind of like riding this wave, and sometimes it's going to be hard to do that when you're in
an emotionally
tensed, like you're in the height of emotion, and so this emotional, like watching and tracking your emotions, is something that you're going to want to do like in a meditation space,
like after the experience.
Yeah. And like even a daily meditations, you're sitting with your emotions and you're following them, and it's really important not to be in judgment of what you're thinking. You're basically
everything's okay,
and you're watching. I mean, you take yourself out of being the participant, because when you're the participant of it, it does the same thing over again. You're feeling that feeling in your body. It's creating these memories, and it's connecting all these things.
Have reoccurring chemical releases of stress and trauma, which is crazy that you can just have a memory of a traumatic event and experience the same wash of stress hormones. So it's really important work to look at your path of emotions and where they come from.
And then when that happens, you're actually back in that moment again.
Absolutely. It's almost brain doesn't know whether it's the past or the present.
Right. And then you're going back to that moment of the point of trauma, and you're feeling the same thing. And it's almost as like your mind can't release you of the fact that you're not in that.
It's experiencing the trauma
again. It's experiencing the trauma over and over again. And there are ways, and there are ways to be able to, and so this tracking of emotion and being with your emotions in meditation and watching them come and watching what the emotions are behind the emotions, and then tracing them back. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a little, and actually let's talk about it right now. Let's talk about like when we are in emotion in meditation, we're in that space. We can be in that space. And when we're following the emotions behind the emotions, and it's leading us, and we're noticing it, and again, don't be in judgment of it, because we tend to, when those things are coming up, we end up feeling, oh, I shouldn't be thinking this, I shouldn't feel this, and then we start with the shame and the guilt of feeling what we're feeling, and then we try to avoid again.
So the secret is to have, and in meditation, you're giving yourself permission to be the observer, not the victim of the emotion.
Right, and you're not participating in
You're not
emotions, and just
participating.
allow them, and just like notice, and what Carl C says is, and this is the beautiful technique in meditation, it's just when they're coming up, kind of notice them, like, oh, there's sadness, look, I'm sad. I was like, oh yeah, I was sad. I was like, yeah, I was a sad teenager. Well, yeah, my mom and dad did this. And you're just noticing, oh yeah, they did this, and I remember that time. Oh, I'm noticing that I remember that time, and yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm noticing, and just allow yourself to go back, because what's actually essentially happening is, Meka and I talked about this before, is what's happening is in the deep soul level, or the broad soul level. Is our souls came here in this physical body
To have a human experience.
And the
Full range of emotion.
And the human experience is emotion. And once we step out of that and we understand that we're a soul wanting a human experience, that we start experiencing and feeling emotions differently. And we allow them.
Yeah. Right. Be like, even anger can be a gift. Even sadness can be a gift if you're viewing it as a, different color on your palette of emotions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And using it as a, different experience to relate to and understand life better.
Right.
So that's beautiful. And then going back to the source of where you created or had that first emotion, and you created that belief system, which you're now operating under,
right,
becomes your programming.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we do,
and that often happens when you're in childhood, and when you're in these meditations.
Always in childhood, we find that.
Yeah, when you're in meditation, you start tracing these moments, and they're to a point of trauma, and they're usually to a point of trauma, but even further back, there's something that happened in childhood. And when we're allowing ourselves to go back, there are some things that we can do when we get to that point of, oh my gosh, I remember that moment when.
Right. And that's the opportunity.
Right.
Is finding those source moments. So if you're brave enough to go through the path of understanding each time you're having these different emotional triggers, shame, guilt, fear, whatever you're noticing your pattern of, finding that source moment of where you created that belief system from that first moment in childhood. And that is the moment, we talk about in shamanism and theta healing, that you can reprogram your belief system, which literally at that moment, if you put a new download, so to speak, into the place of that old belief, you're creating a new belief system, which sets you free from that rippling effect of where all that emotion is trapped, often in the heart for some of these emotions.
Right.
And it can literally release from your body.
Right.
And create a whole new body chemistry related to your life.
And if you have questions about that, might seem very, very overwhelming.
Right.
But if you have questions about that, communicate with us and let us know. We also offer sessions, and that is a lot of work to go through. And it usually, whenever I've had breakthrough moments like that, very big breakthrough moments, I've often had someone help facilitate.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, because being able to get past all the emotions, sometimes it's difficult for us to get past the emotion around a trauma point
itself,
to be able to
have any perspective past it. So yes, we can do sessions, and there's also classes if you want to learn how to do this work yourself. Michelle Orwick is a theta healer that we've both studied with and we love. And also, just being able to know that there are options.
Right. And sometimes even allowing yourself to feel them. When we are in those emotions, and we're allowing ourselves to feel the emotions. And this goes back to feeling emotion in the body. And when we're able to step, not when we're in the moment of heightened emotion, but we're able to be in a space where we're feeling our emotions, and we're feeling the emotion, and we're starting to recognize or understand that the emotion is energy, and the emotion, and when you're feeling this emotion, you're like, where do I feel that in my body? And then you're allowing yourself to feel it in your body, and it could be anywhere. It could be in your neck. It could be, it could be like in your throat all the time when whenever you're feeling emotion, you always have this pain in your throat. And wherever the emotion, track where it is in your body and breathe through it and allow yourself to feel the feeling. And oftentimes we're able to get massive release by breathing, noticing where it is in our body, breathing into it, breathing, unbreathe, and go deeper. Bring love into where you're feeling that pain in your body. Bring love into that place, and just feel it, and then you can start feeling things kind of start coming off of you.
Now, here's a really good opportunity to talk about expressing those. If we
Right.
have a safe space, it's one of the things we're creating a Black Friday ritual for global trauma release, but it's also very personal. So I remember Nataraja talking about a time where she used to have lower back pain
Right.
about 7 or 8 years ago. And she took the time to express the feeling that was trapped in there from however many years previous, from like teenage years. Express it and scream and cry it all out and kick and scream. And then her back shifted where that emotion was being held. And then her back fixed itself because she was able to express it.
Right.
So it could be just changing a belief system around an emotion, or it could be actually moving the energy through expression or energy work.
Right.
There's
and that is,
there.
And often we have certain ailments, certain kinks, just different things in our body, different, either like their illnesses or something chronically happening with us. And I had chronic back pain, lower back pain, almost, it was oftentimes debilitating. And I had gone to acupuncturists and chiropractors and therapists, and I couldn't move. And then like I guess like 7 years ago, a friend was helping me facilitate, and I was yelling, screaming, kicking, and something something actually shifted in my lower back, and I felt this huge, and from that moment on, I didn't have any more lower back pain. And what we don't understand is that when we have certain traumatic events, that gets actually trapped in our body.
And that's why we're talking about a lot of heart healing right now. Because as soon as we started creating Ascended Heart Navigators, we were talking to our friends because I wanted to do a heart healing album. And Nataraja was talking to our friends, and every time we started talking about heart healing, they would touch their hearts.
Oh, that's right.
And so it's like they could feel the trauma or sadness being trapped in our physical and energetic hearts. Therefore, this is one of the focuses of our work together, is to have these conversations to enlighten that it is a possibility, dear beautiful traveler friends, to release some of this pain that we're having physically, emotionally, and in our energetic bodies as well. So it all relates. They're not separate.
Right.
One, I think, important tool that I don't want to glance over, because I know a lot of people are having panic attacks and depression and issues that they don't know how to get out of in the moment.
Right.
A lot of what we're talking about is like when you're reflecting back on something, when you're doing a healing session. But when you're in a panic attack, a moment of anger, fear, you're worried about...
You're in a heightened
emotional state.
Response.
So let's talk about some of the tools that you can use.
One of your favorites is the gratitude, right? You talked
One of my favorites
about that last time.
17 seconds of gratitude.
17 seconds,
changes your brain chemistry from negative to positive. Therefore, you're literally giving your body a chemical gift of positivity when you sit in gratitude. So what I do, especially if I'm driving and I can't do something more expressive and crazy, like dancing and singing and, moving through the energy, if I'm just have to do the mental work, I'll start saying as I'm driving 17 things I'm grateful for, because it's way longer than 17 seconds, but I'm tricking myself to not count. I'm staying with it until I see the transition.
And do you know why that is so effective?
Why?
Is because the feeling of joy, as far as like the they've done this like frequency thing, and the feeling of joy is like one of the highest
frequencies.
And when you're stepping out of like anger, frustration, fear,
lower frequencies,
emotions. And the moments you move into gratitude,
it's a higher frequency.
You've completely taken yourself out of this lower base frequency.
We're kind of like radios that you can tune.
Right. And you're dialing it up. And when you're dialing it up, I swear, when you're dialing that frequency up and you're moving it into gratitude, love and gratitude, we're going to talk about love in a second. When you're moving it into gratitude and joy, there's that your vision. It kind of opens things. It opens your heart. It also opens your pineal, and then you start to,
which is a gland here.
There's a gland here. That's
your third
eye, and you actually are able to see things more clearly.
Oh,
when you're in anger, when you're in an anger response, it actually is, you can't see. You're in a fog because you're in a vibrational frequency.
Low frequency.
Right. And then you step into joy and love, and then somehow something happens, and then there's it's called the mind heart coherence. And what that happens is there's breath that happens. You're able to connect your brain to your heart, open your pineal gland, and you're changing your frequency, and joy is the highest. And that's why this is so effective for you, is because you're actually popping off to the highest level of joy and frequency and then all of a sudden when you're driving, it's chemical. Right, exactly, yes.
We can move in from one feeling to another, one frequency to another, by using gratitude as the tool. And even if you resist it at first, stay with it until you have that whole 17 seconds, because it is a chemical thing, scientific. That's what they've measured. Right. And you can give yourself the gift of a fresh perspective and to be able to see clearly, is what Nataraja was talking about too. Because it actually changes your ability to be present in the moment, and even the way you see things and can comprehend things. You're giving your brain a dose of healthy perspective, but it's a chemical health. So,
and let's talk about oxygen.
Oxygen is important too. And like literally filling our brain up. Like we're just a fleshy machine, right? So if we're not working correctly, we just need to give it our tools. And if we're giving things that deplete our oxygen, like not breathing and holding our breath, which a lot of us do, I am guilty of that, then we are preventing ourselves from getting oxygen.
Right. And often when we are in a heightened emotional response, what do? We don't breathe. We don't
clench up.
We tighten up. We don't breathe. And then what's happening is we stop breathing. We no longer have oxygen being sent to our brain. Then we definitely can't think clearly, and our heart rate speeds up. And so what's our body or brains are telling our bodies is, you're going to be attacked. This is not safe. Get out, or fight.
And which are lower frequency experiences.
Right. But this is
coming from old school human history.
Right.
Like tens of thousands of years programmed into our brain.
Right.
It's fight or flight. That saber-toothed tiger is going to come get me. But it's not really relevant when you're just dealing with Facebook posts. Right. You're not necessarily in the same danger.
It's so true.
But you feel like you're in the same danger, which is why it's important to get a grasp on your emotions, because there is no tiger to fight. And if you are fighting a tiger, that's crazy. You're probably like somewhere that I haven't been, or in a really cool zoo. But even then, they probably are just hungry, and they're like, "Give me that delicious steak that you're holding, zookeeper." But anyway, the point is, the saber-toothed tiger is not coming to get you when you're looking at Facebook and experiencing somebody with a different opinion than you.
Exactly.
So it's okay. They're allowed to have a different opinion. It's safe for them to have an opinion. It's safe for you to have an opinion. As an example, that you can stay safe and being okay in all these different emotions that you're feeling.
And so the gratitude is one thing that you can do when you're around people.
What's another?
Another one that you can do when you're having a heightened emotional response is saying, saying, I love you, I love you, I love you.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
I love you, I love you, I love you. And this is another higher vibrational feeling when you're saying, I love you, I love you, I love you. Or I invite, and one of my personal, I love saying, I invite love into this moment. Taking a breath, saying it to yourself, I invite love into this moment.
I invite love into this moment.
And if you're not willing if you really don't want to invite love into this moment because you're really angry about something, just say, I'm willing to invite love into this moment. And if you're really, really resistant, I'm willing to be willing to invite love into this moment.
Girl.
And when you're breathing in that, it actually does, you're able to, again, get out of this frontal lobe, this distorted, I'm being attacked, foggy brain, fight or flight, emotional response.
Saber-toothed tiger, survival thing, panic.
And you're dropping, again, we talked about this the last time, you're dropping out of your frontal lobe and you're dropping into your heart. And when your heart actually starts communicating something completely different. And that's when we're able to, especially when we're in this landscape, this political landscape of so much conflict, and different kind of belief systems and, social justice issues. When we're able to drop into love, we are able to go into a place of empathy and sympathy with others. And when we're breathing, and then we open up to the fact that they might be going through something very traumatic. Much as you're seeing things through the lens of your own past, they are seeing things through the lens of their own past and their own trauma as well.
Right.
And understanding that is mind-blowing. That we are actually experiencing something based on our past emotions and our past feelings, as they are experiencing the exact same scenario based on their past emotions and their past feelings.
And we know human experience can be a lot and a little weird sometimes.
And it's very distorted.
Especially when we're in anger, sadness, or fear.
Right.
No clarity. That's why it's important to meditate. And our brain is just a lot of chemistry. So being able to give yourself some tools. The last tool we're going to share with you today is not something you necessarily do in public, but it is called tapping. We'll go into this more in depth in a future video, but we just want to introduce the idea that to get out of flight or fight, there is a technique called EMT tapping.
Emotional Freedom Technique, EFT.
EFT. Emotional Freedom Technique? That is a name that I want to give to everybody.
Right.
Emotional Freedom Technique.
EFT. It's emotional.
And
so when you're in heightened, especially like if you're on Facebook or Twitter, so what you're doing is you're basically touching these acupressure points that send they send messages to your brain. And what it is that when you're feeling something, whatever, be in that moment of feeling and tell yourself, I'm safe, I am okay.
I'm safe,
and then breathing in what you're wanting to feel. So you're going to start touch here. We're going to talk about this later on. You're touching these different places and what that does is it brings you out of this fight or flight. It brings you back into your body, and you're now telling your body that you're safe. You're not fighting a tiger. You are safe. This is not a fight or flight.
Life is good.
And then you're able to, and then the emotion cannot become like
all
stuck.
consuming and
it can't be like stuck in your body anymore because it's actually breaking that connection with the physical response in the body to the emotion that you're experiencing.
That's huge.
It is really
Nataraja.
huge.
Wow. All right. So what have we talked about today?
Triggers.
Yeah. Emotional triggers.
Tracking your emotions.
Taking the journey of seeing where your patterns, habits, addictions, and belief systems live inside of your life experience.
Watch your emotions from not from a participant, but from the observer.
Learn to meditate.
Yeah.
Which I know sounds really intimidating, and we're getting used to it. But even there's an app called...
Oh, yeah. The app that I use, and I absolutely love, is called Insight Timer.
Bing, bing, bing.
Insight Timer. It's a free app. Download it. You can put all kinds of, like intervals and bells and times and the different sounds that you want for your meditation. It's a beautiful app.
Start with 2 minutes. the Dalai Lama said one breath is a meditation if you do it with intention and clarity and
Right.
present moment. So just give yourself like an exercise. Be like, all right, I can sit and breathe and just focus on my breath for a couple minutes and observe my thoughts and not get lost and far away.
And don't label, like, try not to label them, try not to judge them, try not to feel guilt over what you're feeling. The feelings are just feelings.
Just observe.
And notice them. Like, I'm feeling this. Oh, I remember this. Yeah, and there's a release. So there's so many tools there.
So if you are interested in retreats, we have contacts for that. If you're interested in theta healing classes.
Or sessions.
Yes.
Or sessions. Or even if you have more questions, please.
We're here.
We're
we
here.
We have a website, AscendedHeartNavigators.com, where you can book sessions with us, but we can also have a web of other people that we can connect you to. And do like, follow, and subscribe
to Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Follow us.
Yes. So she's ready for it.
I'm ready for it. I want it. Thank you.
We are Ascended Heart Navigators, and we appreciate you, and we hope you have a beautiful, loving journey. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yep. Bye.